Hello, good morning everyone. So I'm here today to present, okay, that's not the first one. Okay, I'm here today to present to you how we could simplify actual oral PrEP regimen. I'm from the community-based research team of ED in France, and I've been working with community peer workers on hypergay trial and now on Prevenir study. So I've been working on PrEP since 2012. So a few years back, sorry. Thank you. And peer workers have been offering sexual health counseling to PrEP users since then, 2012. And so they gained some skills and are specialized into translating scientific data in daily language so that PrEP users can understand complex situations and things. And we've worked with PrEP users who explained to us many things about how to better explain PrEP to them. And we faced constant demand since then about how to properly take PrEP, even after we explained the different intake method of PrEP for either daily or event-driven PrEP. So we had to rethink PrEP regimen to explain how to use PrEP to users better. And so we've come to a new way to explain them. So I'm going to show it to you right now. Our objective was, and it's from the guidelines, and I don't know why the light is off, but it's from the guideline in Australia. You can find it. It's recommended to find a way to explain PrEP regimen the simplest way possible. And for sure, I'm trying to do so. And thank you. And PrEP users need to be empowered about PrEP so that they can use it in their daily life and in, how is it called? In the different variation of their sex life and adapt it to this. So to empower users, community workers identified key skills such as how to start and how to stop PrEP, how PrEP works, how to react when a dose is missed or not taken on time, and how to adjust PrEP to its evolving sex life. So in this presentation, I will focus on the two red points, how to start and stop, which is really linked to how to adjust PrEP to its evolving sex life. Why is it so complicated right now? You can see on the board that there's multiple PrEP regimens for cis MSM. To start with, I will go with the other group on the next slide. It's almost impossible to understand what is a good choice to start and to stop PrEP at the moment because there's many options and not a single guideline says the same thing in the world or in Europe or in France. And we've got many guidelines in France too. So some guidelines don't even explain how to start or how to stop PrEP. It's the case for EMA guideline, EACS guideline also, except if you watch videos. And it's the case for ANSM in France, which is the authority that authorized the medication of PrEP in France. So PrEP users get the information from their doctor to use PrEP in a certain way, and then they talk with their friends, and their friend has another way to use PrEP because another doctor told them to do something different. And then they get confused and they call community workers to get an explanation about why is there so many different ways, which is the good for me, and how does it really work? So this is a real source of confusion for people, and it's been the case for a very long time now. For cis women and trans men, the recommendations, the guidelines are also quite confused and different depending on which guideline you look at. So there's a need to decide for an acceptable regimen for cis women and trans men. HEAD chose to recommend 7 days to start and 7 days to stop PrEP for cis women and trans men. That's what we recommend at the moment since a few years. For heterosexual cis men and trans women, we've got an issue for this group, because especially for hetero cis men, is someone here able to explain to me why it's different for hetero cis men, the recommendation, than for MSM? MSN include men who have sex with women. So some men who have sex with women are allowed to use event-driven PrEP, and some others, I don't know why, cannot use it because sometimes, I don't know, somehow magically it doesn't work for every man who have sex with women, while it works for some. So this is not something logical. The level of risk is not different for, and the mechanism of risk is not different for a straight cis man and for cis MSM. So we recommend to use the event-driven regimen for hetero cis men, for all cis men, in fact. And also there's this regimen complexity that we introduced in France, the 1+1 resuming of event-driven PrEP. If you stop PrEP for less than 7 days, you can resume with only 1 pill instead of 2. This is something that is not in any guidelines because it's come from the Hypergate trial, but we implemented it in France. And it's a good thing that it's not in any guideline because it's a source of complexity that should be definitely avoided anywhere in the world. So I advise you to not remember this and to not implement it in your national guidelines. It's a source of complexity to explain and to remember for PrEP users. It's a source of repeated mistakes in real life, missed or excessive doses and intakes. And it led PrEP users to repeat the 1+1+1 intake as a long-term weekend regimen. So they just do 1+1+1, and we don't know if it works. It's never been tested, never been validated. So we've got an issue with that on a small scale in France. So what we do recommend now is to stop talking about daily or on-demand PrEP because these are research and study concepts. They are both nowadays in real life obsolete and false. False because daily users stopped at some point, and both false because on-demand users take PrEP for a very long time sometimes, so there's no major difference. And if you look at the WHO guidelines recently for MSM, well, they are both the same at the moment, but the WHO, the organization, did not take the step to say, okay, there's no more daily or no more event-driven PrEP. Every PrEP is event-driven because everyone wants to know how to start and how to stop. And the notion of starting and stopping are real-life concepts that users need to understand and want to understand. So we think that's what we need to explain, how to start and how to stop. And so we propose that PrEP regimen should be based on users' needs. And for cis men and trans women, we propose to simply use 2+1+1 and extend it as long as you wish regimen. And for cis women and trans men, a 7-day regimen to start and 7-day regimen to stop. So to show it in some more easy way to look at it, I want to start PrEP and I'm a cis man or trans woman. It takes 2 tablets at once to start PrEP, and I'm protected for HIV 2 hours later. Then you keep on as long as you need, or you don't keep on if you just need to protect one sexual intercourse. And for the same group to stop, I just take 2 tablets after the last sexual intercourse I want to protect. For cis women and trans men, it takes 7 days of 1 tablet per day to be protected for HIV. You keep on for as long as you need, and once you want to stop, you take pills for 7 days after the last intercourse you want to protect. And that's it. So what would be next is that this unified PrEP regimen I'm talking about, we implemented it orally. We talk about it with PrEP users at the moment in France, and their feedback is that it's easy to remind and to apply, easier than the other way we had previously presented the PrEP, oral PrEP. And it generates fewer questions during initiation period, meaning that they call us less, they write to us less, which is a good thing too. And it will be certainly introduced in the next version of ED PrEP Guide that is widely distributed in France to PrEP users, and it's a first source of information for most of the PrEP users when they start PrEP in France. So I just invite you to share this and take a step for an easier or an easy PrEP regimen based on the user's need. Thank you.
Hello.
Is this one?
Oop. Yes, I wasn't going to ask questions, but I think Greg will explode unless he asks a question. So ask your question, Greg.
Are you going to stay on the stage? Yeah, up you pop. I have a few questions around some of the more nuanced pieces of advice you've given there. I think it's great that we start to do away with the on-demand and daily. My full support on that. However, I found some of the advice in that somewhat questionable. We simply don't have the data on trans women and the effect of gender-affirming hormones on how that drug is metabolized in trans women's bodies. So there was a small study, very, very small numbers, I think like 12, 13 trans women compared with the same number of cis men, and the trans women were on feminizing hormones, and that small study did show that the drug was metabolized quicker and flushed out of the system sooner. So now in the UK, we would recommend the same for trans women as cis women, a 7-day lead-in daily and a 7-day to come off. Also, I think the advice, again, for trans men is really difficult because we just don't have the data and we don't know what hormones in the bodies of trans men will do. But we used to say anyone having anal sex, we would expect that it's the same, but we just can't say that in the presence of those gender-affirming hormones. So a trans man having only receptive anal sex, really, if that trans man wasn't taking hormones, we would expect that trans man could do the 2-1-1. So there's a lot of nuance there, and I would just really advocate that, particularly for trans women, that we advocate on the safer side and the same instructions as cis women. You will also find that our BASH-BIVA guidelines, although we haven't got a full commission service around the UK, those guidelines do incorporate the IBRGA instructions and that dreaded 1+1+1, which is an absolute mindfuck, I'll give you that. Those were my notes. I think I thank you for the presentation, but I would seriously challenge some of your directions.
Okay, I mean, I have about 2 pages worth of opinions on this as well, but I'm not going to give them. Stephane.
I guess whatever you said right now was true. The idea was to offer a simpler view on the regimen for most of us to communicate. It will not prevent to have a one-to-one conversation about real sex of each person who starts PrEP and to adjust PrEP regimen to the people, because in oversimplification I chose to put trans women in 2+1+1.
I totally agree, but I don't think you can, because you don't know how this information, if you're releasing it publicly online, disseminating it into communities, you have no way of safeguarding that there's going to be that nuanced, educated, one-on-one conversation. So I think you have to revert back to what the data tells you, which is, if even it's a very small study, but we have to advocate 777 for trans women on hormones, the same as we would for cis women. I don't think it's responsible to do anything else.
Okay. For the trans woman and for the trans men, this situation is quite complicated, it's true, but okay, I tried to simplify it, but it's maybe...
I'm sorry, but the outcome is complicated, I get that, and we're working the same turf here, but the outcome, the potential risk is a HIV infection if that drug is metabolized too quickly and is flushed from the body. So I get that we want to simplify, but we also, our key priority needs to be the user. We need to revert back.
Okay, so to stay in a clear message, I would go to, let's say that for cis men and cis women, this is a presentation that has meaning. And for trans women and trans men, maybe we need very more research for sure, and even for cis women, to be honest. But to simplify this for cis men and cis women is certainly really possible and need to be done at least. And let's keep a space for transgender people, trans people to be adapted.
Yanis, we really haven't got time. Can it be asked afterwards?
Okay. No, just underscoring again Greg's point. So the WHO 211 recommendation for some of you were sort of part of the peer review because of the data gap in transgender persons. This is why 211 by WHO is only for cis MSM.
Okay, thanks. All right. Thank you very much, Stephane.
But it's not yet unified. Yeah. You still recommend daily and event at the same time, which is a source of confusion. Thank you.
Yeah. Ongoing discussions around this one, but I agree that the current advice is very hard to understand for your average punter.